Last summer I cooked a brisket that fooled a man from Lockhart, Texas. A man who has eaten barbecue his whole life, and I cooked it in the same oven I use for frozen pizza. The whole trick came down to one ingredient that costs about $4 at any grocery store. But here's the part that matters for your wallet. The smoker setup I almost bought that spring, a mid-size pellet rig with the cover and the pellets and the shelf, priced out at over $1,400. I skipped all of it. Today I'm going to show you exactly how. And I want to be straight with you up front because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking oven barbecue is a sad imitation, something people settle for. I thought the same thing for years. I live in an apartment with a balcony the size of a bath mat, and my lease bans anything with an open flame, so a real offset pit was never going to happen for me. What changed my mind was learning what actually makes Texas brisket taste like Texas brisket. And once you see it broken down, the $1,400 smoker starts to look optional. So what does the smoke actually do? 3 things get credit for great brisket. The smoke flavor itself, the bark, that dark, peppery crust on the outside, and the texture, meat so tender it jiggles when you shake the tray. Here's what surprised me. Only the first one, the smoke flavor, actually requires smoke. The bark comes from salt, pepper, and hours of dry heat. The texture comes from collagen slowly melting, somewhere around 200 degrees internal. And your oven does slow heat better than most stick burners because it holds temperature all night without you babysitting a fire at 3 a.m. Which brings me to the $4 fix. It's a small bottle of liquid smoke. Hold on. Before you close the video, hear me out because almost everyone misunderstands what this stuff is. Liquid smoke is not a chemical flavoring cooked up in a lab. The classic brands make it by burning real hickory or mesquite, running the actual smoke through a condenser, and capturing it in water. It's smoke, in a bottle. The reason it has a bad reputation is that people dump tablespoons of it into things, and concentrated smoke tastes like licking an ashtray. Used right, which means a teaspoon or less, spread across a whole roast, it reads exactly like a long afternoon over post oak. Pitmasters won't admit this out loud. Blind taste tests keep embarrassing them anyway, but the bottle is only step 1. And if you stop there, you'll get smoky pot roast, not brisket. There are 3 more moves, and each one exists to fix the failure the previous one creates. Stay with me, because the 3rd move is where every single oven attempt I've ever seen falls apart, including my own first 4 tries. Start with the meat, and here's where I save you real money twice in the same video. Skip packer brisket entirely. A whole brisket at my grocery store runs $60 to $80, and it's the least forgiving cut in the meat case. Buy a chuck roast instead. Chuck comes from the shoulder, right next door to the brisket on the animal, and it's loaded with the same connective tissue and marbling. Around here it goes for about $6 a pound, so a 3-pound roast costs less than 2 takeout burritos. Texans have been calling this poor man's brisket for generations. It renders softer, it cooks faster, and when a slice hits the plate next to white bread and pickles, the people eating it do not ask questions. Now the seasoning, and this is where the fix goes on. Pat the roast dry. Rub it all over with about a teaspoon of liquid smoke, using your hands, thin and even like you're applying sunscreen. Then hit every surface with a heavy coat of coarse salt and cracked black pepper. Roughly half and half, which is the actual Central Texas rub. Nothing else. Sugar burns over a long cook and garlic powder is fine, but it's not the point. Then, and this matters more than any gadget, put the roast on a rack, uncovered, in the fridge, overnight. The salt migrates into the meat while the surface dries out, and a dry surface is the only surface that builds real bark. Skip the overnight rest and you'll get a gray, steamed exterior no matter what else you do right. The next day, into the oven at 275 degrees. Put the roast on a wire rack over tray, so hot air moves under it the way it would over pit grates. And now, do nothing. For hours. This is where the oven quietly beats a cheap smoker because a $500 pellet grill in a July wind swings 30 degrees and your oven doesn't. But somewhere around 160 degrees internal, the whole project will try to break your spirit. The temperature just stops climbing. It can sit there for hours, and this is the moment I ruined my first brisket, cranking the heat in a panic and turning a beautiful roast into jerky. What's happening is evaporation. The meat is sweating faster than the oven can heat it, exactly like you cooling off after a run. Barbecue people call it the stall, and the fix is the same one used at every serious barbecue joint in Texas. Wrap it. Pull the roast, wrap it tight in 2 layers of foil with a splash of beef broth, and put it back in. The wrap stops the evaporation, the temperature starts climbing again, and the meat braises in its own rendered fat for the rest of the ride. You're pulling it out when a probe slides into the thickest part like it's going into warm butter, usually around 203 degrees internal, somewhere in the 7 to 9 hour range for a big chuck. And I need you to hear the next sentence like it's the only sentence in the video. Do not slice it hot. Leave it wrapped, throw a towel around it, and let it rest in a cooler, or the turned off oven for at least an hour. Cut early, and every drop of that rendered fat runs onto the cutting board instead of staying in the slice. So let's talk about what comes out, because this is the part I didn't believe until I did it. The bark is dark and crackly from the overnight dry brine. The inside is soft enough to pull apart with 2 fingers, shot through with melted fat. And the flavor, thanks to that 1 teaspoon from the $4 bottle, carries real wood smoke from the first bite to the last. That Lockhart friend I mentioned, I served him this exact cook on a Sunday in June, sliced on butcher paper like a proper spread, and he went back for a 3rd helping before he asked what pit I'd used. I pointed at the kitchen. He didn't believe me until I showed him the bottle. Total cost of that dinner for 6 people was under $25, and the smoker I never bought is still sitting in somebody's warehouse, all $1,400 of it. Quick pause while the math is fresh because people keep asking where the full playbook lives. This video is the short version. I put the whole system, the exact rubs, the timing charts for different roast sizes, the pulled chuck sandwiches, all of it, into the Poor Man's Brisket ebook. The link's in the description, or just scan the QR on screen. Now, back to it. Because there are 2 upgrades left, and the second one is the best trick I know. Upgrade 1 costs nothing. When you wrap at the stall, switch the foil for butcher paper if you have it, or leave the foil loosely tinted instead of sealed. Foil sealed tight makes the meat softer, but slightly steams the bark. Paper breathes. It's the difference between a good crust and a great one, and it's why the famous joints in Austin wrap in pink paper by the roll. But upgrade 2 is the one that separates backyard cooks from the places with lines around the block, and almost nobody outside the industry talks about it. The famous barbecue joints don't serve brisket an hour after it's done, they hold it. The briskets come off the pit at night and sit in warming ovens until the doors open the next day. Sometimes 8, 10, 12 hours later, resting at around 150 degrees the entire time. That long, warm hold is when the collagen finishes turning to gelatin and the fat settles back through the meat. It is arguably the single biggest reason restaurant brisket tastes better than home brisket. And your oven can do it. Finish the cook in the evening, drop the oven to its lowest setting, usually 170, and let the wrapped roast sleep in there until lunch. The first time I did an overnight hold, the difference was so big my wife asked if I'd bought it from a restaurant. Same $4 bottle, same $6 meat. The only thing I added was patience, so here's where you land. For the price of 1 chuck roast and a bottle you'll use for a year, you get 90% of what a $1,400 rig delivers, with no fire watch, no weather, and no landlord problems. Is it identical to 18 hours over Post Oak in Taylor, Texas? No, and I won't pretend otherwise. A great pit adds a depth at the edges that a bottle can't fully fake. But the honest question was never whether it beats the best pit in Texas. It's whether it beats anything you can make right now, in the kitchen you already have, for money you already spend on one mediocre restaurant visit. And that leaves the question I keep turning over every time someone shows me their new smoker in a group chat. We tell ourselves the gear is the barrier, that the food we want lives on the other side of a purchase. Then a $14 roast and a Tuesday night oven prove the barrier was mostly a story. So what else in your kitchen are you not cooking because you think you're missing the equipment for it? Tell me in the comments, because those answers become future videos. If this one saved you $1,400, the subscribe button costs nothing, and next week I'm doing ribs with no grill at all. Same oven. You'll want to see it. Word count 1,848.